So what I want to do today is I want to just start with a trip update from Africa, and then after that, then I'll finish up on the speaking life topic that we started a few weeks ago, and that should do it for today. All right, so as you know, so I went to two places. I went to Kenya and I went to Uganda, and so I wanted to give you some updates from all the places that we went to. All right, so in Kenya, I went to visit Joseph Nyosi, and Joseph is the pastor in Kisii, Kenya, and I've gone. This was my third trip to go visit him, and great things have been happening for him. So he started off with one church, and now he's got three churches, and he's calling them all Dominion churches because they're teaching about authority, dominion, faith, healing, all the things that we talk about in this Bible study. And he's been having tremendous good fruit from that, and that's why things have expanded so rapidly. So I'm sure by the time I go next year, he's going to have maybe 5+ churches underneath him because he's continually out sharing the message with different churches, teaching them, and it's going to continue to grow. And so during the trip, I spent 1.5 days in each of his three churches. So Kenya Amwari, which is his home church. Then there's Pastor Samuel and Pastor Peter, and we spent a day and a half in each of those. We went through some of the core teachings, and it was very well received. And what we had done ahead of time is we had printed up study guides, so every person in all the meetings that we went to, whether in Kenya or whether in Uganda, they all had manuals. So I think we gave away something like, let's see, over 500 study guides we gave away between Kenya and Uganda. So there's a good set of core teachings out there. And so in Joseph's home church, they're prospering very well. Actually, we built him a bigger church just recently, and he has increased numbers of people. The people in his congregation, they're healthy, so they're not sick anymore. They're just abiding in health. They're walking in victory. You can see that they're prospering in life. Their clothes, their dress is better than before. They're doing very well, and it's because they've just laid hold of this victory message, which is the true gospel. And maybe the most amazing thing from the trip was a year ago, Dr. Isaac came to the teaching, and we had taught about faith and authority and healing. And then Dr. Isaac and we had gone to the hospital together, and we had prayed for three people, and one of them had pneumonia, and the other two had some kind of fever and sickness, and all three of them were just instantly healed. And so he's a doctor, and so he examined them, and he's like, Bobby, they're completely well. They could go home right now. I'm like, I know. And so he had witnessed this firsthand. And then Dr. Isaac and I had prayed for his hospital, and he had 15 patients, and 13 of those patients went home healed the next day, which is 18 hours later. And then the remaining two patients, they went home 24 hours later. So all 15 of his patients were healed by the power of God. And so he like totally believed in divine healing. And so what he's done is he's gone back to his hospital, which is hours away from Joseph's church. He's gone back to his hospital, and now their primary means of treating patients, the first thing they do when a patient comes in their hospital is they lay hands on them and they pray for them. And he says that now, more often than not, they don't even treat them with medicine. They just pray for them and God heals them. That is like phenomenal.
That is awesome.
I know, like, wow. And so I think he had three more doctors came for training this year. And truly, this is going to spread. Like, in the name of Jesus, it will spread that the main way of treating patients will be by the power of God and not needing medicine. I mean, we have doctors doing that. I mean, that is awesome.
That's awesome, Bobby.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Then
that is.
another great thing that Joseph's doing, he was extremely organized. Like he's running a tight ship. Everything is well structured. It's really just nice to see what they're doing. So Joseph has also gotten involved with the Kenyan government, and he had I think three or four Kenyan government officials that were in the teachings that we were doing, and they embraced the message about faith and authority. And now Joseph is engaged and plus they gave us a free ticket. They said, come to Kenya anytime and we'll take care of you. The government of Kenya, we will take care of you. So we're very well received by the government. And they're an advocate. Like here, a lot of times there's controversy between people and government, whereas in Kenya, the government's your advocate because they want the same things that people want. Because right over here we're rich, we have all of our needs are always met, and we just so we're just complaining about stuff. Over there, they want the same things. They want food, they want water, they want electricity, they want good roads, and so they want peace. They don't want any of this fighting that's going on. Okay, so the church and the government want the same things. They saw and heard about faith and authority. They embrace that, and now Joseph is giving them weekly Bible studies, and now they've also made an agreement with Joseph that before their officiating that they do, they're going to have a 30-minute prayer session with Joseph so that they're going to pray for the situations and let God work within the government to address the problems. And that's exactly what our Father wants. Remember, Jesus died, and Jesus made us kings and priests. So that's not two different things. It's one thing, a king and a priest. We're a king and a priest because, we're not to be an ungodly king. We're to be a king and a priest. A priest is somebody who's connected to God. A priest is someone who knows the will of God. A priest, is a representative of God. Okay, so as a king, we are also a priest. And so that means in our ruling and reigning, we're to rule and reign, exercising dominion, authority, but in the interest of bringing forth our Father's goodwill. Okay, so when you combine king and priest, which is the opposite of the U.S. government because we have a separation of church and state, okay, but when you combine them, then you're ruling and reigning with the will of God. And that's exactly what has started in Kenya right now. So that's beautiful. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. And then the other thing, so in Joseph's home church, I did a teaching that we'll do here probably in a couple weeks. It's called Draw Near to God. And we had great fruit from that. Draw near to God is based upon what it says in the book of James. It says, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Cleanse, it says, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Okay, so drawing near to God, it's really going to involve three major things. One is getting out of sin and staying out of sin. It's going to involve purifying your heart. And then the third thing it's going to involve, and there's more than three things, but just very simply, the third thing is just it's going to require us to continue to walk in love. And so we did about 3 hours of teaching on that, and there was some great fruit from that where people, they let go of resentments, they let go of anger and bitterness and unforgiveness, they let go of those things, they got reconciled in relationships, and those are things that are important to God, important to Jesus. Remember, he taught in Matthew chapter 5, if you go to the altar and there you go to the altar and you're going to give a gift to God and there you remember that there's something between you and your brother, first go be reconciled and then come back. And so it's so important to God that, before you even give your gift and do the nice thing you were going to do towards God, before you do that, go get reconciled. And so people started doing that, and there were some great testimonies about that. So things are really looking good in Kenya. And, there's a variety of different needs that they have. They want to get a water well. They want to, I don't even remember. They want a boys and a girls dormitory for, orphanage. So there's a lot of things that we need to pray about and talk about as far as supporting them in various needs that they have. But things are going very well in Kenya. Okay, and here's we leased an acre of land, and they're growing like corn and beans on it, and this is to support the orphans, to help them with their food needs and provide income if they decide to sell some. Then here is me and Pastor Joseph, and you see this chicken. Joseph had been teaching about the importance of giving, and so when we were in Pastor Peter's church, one of his elders, as I'm getting ready to drive away, he plopped a tied up chicken in my lap through the car window. And we were, yeah, so that was my gift, and I was supposed to take him home or something. But you can't take you can't take livestock back, right? In the U.S. So I'm like, Joseph, I can't take this chicken. They won't let me take it back home. And he's like, well, we can eat it on the weekend. So I'm like, oh
Oh.
no. So,
Oh.
so anyway, so I gave it to Joseph, and I was praying for him. I'm like, in the name of Jesus, chicken, you will live and you will not die. And so he lived, and that's why his name is now Sozo, because he was saved by Jesus.
Oh, I love it.
Sozo the chicken. This is Joseph's home church over here. It's new and bigger. It's got concrete floor. It used to be made out of mud. It had mud floor, mud walls. So now it's bigger and it's concrete, so it stays dry and clean. And then here is Pastor Peter, and this is one of Joseph's churches. And this is his house. And you can see this is a mud dwelling. It's a mud floor, mud walls, and thatch roof or something. And this is Joseph. This is his wife. This is Peter. This is me. And this is Peter's church. Again, this is like a mud building, and he's got a metal roof that we put there. And then this is Samuel's church, and you can see it's outside. It's got like a grass roof, and all these places you'll see people had the books. Like everybody had a book, and so they were very studious people. Everybody's got their book, and they are studious. They're paying attention to what's being taught. They don't fall asleep. They don't yawn. It's just amazing. Like if you go over an hour with somebody here, they're like taking a nap on you.
Mm.
Yep. So that was good. Then
Bobby, a list of needs is a church building for Samuel one of the things?
yes, he would like to build a church. Basically convert it into having a metal roof at a minimum, and then it would be nice to have walls also.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And again, the construction of something like this is pretty cost effective. Like Joseph's church was very cost effective. It's just metal sheeting and sticks, So people typically contribute the sticks and nails, and if we can afford metal sheeting, then we're able to very affordably build a church, which is a good structure for them.
Right.
Actually, and he's got electricity. You can't see it here, but there's outlets now for electricity. Maybe you can see.
Wow.
They're just waiting for the government. They're going to finish running the electricity to his property. He's given consent to put a transformer on the property. So for the first time, him and his village are going to have electricity.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And they just want a water well now because now they have to get water off the roof or else go to the river. Okay, and then in Uganda, Pastor Rogers is one of my key contacts there. He has a church called the Back to Jesus Church, which is on the outskirts of Kampala. And so Mitchell and Kathy, so when you go there, just be careful because remember the Bible says be ready in season and out of season. Well, I was like fresh off the airplane from Kenya, jeans, t-shirt, and then Simon decides to drive me straight to Rogers' crusade. And then, I'm not prepared to talk to anybody. And there's like 400 people there. And it's like, Bobby, we need you to come up and talk to the people. I'm like, oh my God. But it went well, If you don't know what to say, it's always good to share testimonies. And just build people's faith by sharing testimonies. And just link some scriptures to it. And then that builds interest, it builds excitement. And then I was using that as an enticement to bring people into the teaching program that we were going to do all week at this church. So there were many people that got saved as a result of the crusade. There were, also I got to baptize 4 people, so that's the first time I ever baptized anyone. And
Wow.
we taught like 8 classes at Rogers Church, and it was with many of the new converts from the crusade that he had. And it was really covered some good territory. There were many Muslims that converted also, and 2 of them I got to work with, and they converted from that to Jesus. And one of them, he just read the study guide and he liked the image of Jesus and the image of our Father that he saw in the scriptures, and so he wanted Jesus as just a result of reading the good things the Bible says, and other ones were from hearing the preaching that was being done. And then in his church, we had some healing that happened. There was a lady who was a new convert, and she had a hernia. And we prayed for her like just 2 times, and boom, instantly she was healed, and she was hitting her stomach, and she was just laughing, and she was happy because there was no pain. It was completely gone. And she was so excited about that that she's brought in 10 more new people into Rogers Church since then. So when people experience the power of God, it just spreads like wildfire. It's good stuff. And then there was a teen boy, and he had only had 1 hour of teaching, and the teaching was Victorious Sons of God, which is a teaching that covers the goodwill of God, and it tells us how to pray differently. It tells us how to pray like Jesus instructed us to pray for a problem by commanding it. And so this boy, he has a girl who is a friend that was sick. It was very clear it was not his girlfriend, so it's a girl who is a friend. She was sick, and they prayed on the phone, and boom, she was healed. And so he's
Wow.
excited. And then there was a little boy that had malaria, and so we laid hands on him and prayed for him. And then I told him, now I want you to go run. And he didn't want to. I'm like, go run right now. Go run. And so he went and ran through the lawn, and then he came back, and he was completely well. And he felt great. So, Jesus often did that. He'd tell somebody to arise, and they were paralyzed. How are you, how are you going to arise when you're paralyzed? You just give a command. And so a lot of times the difference between a healing and a miracle is that, in both cases you would pray for them to be healed, but in the case, if you want to push for a miracle, have them do something that they couldn't do before. The boy was sick and weak, and before he couldn't run, but I told him, go run now. And he went and ran, and he came back well. If somebody has pain in their back, you pray for their back, and then you tell them to bend down. So when you have them do a work along with your prayer, then you're more likely to have an instant healing. Okay, then this was another first. There was a lady that had a stomach disease for 7 years, and she'd been to many doctors and was undergoing treatment. And I had prayed for Roger's congregation for all of them, all at once, just for a variety of things, like in closing. And from that closing prayer for the entire group of people, she was healed completely. She'd even gone to a doctor, and she was just completely well. So that's the first time that's ever happened that I'm aware of, for me. Then, lastly, again, this draw near to God teaching worked wonders in many people. There were people that let go of resentments and unforgiveness. There was even a lady whose husband had brought a concubine in. In other words, somebody, an extramarital woman, like back in the Old Testament days where they'd have a wife and many concubines. Okay, so she had a lot of bitterness towards her husband and towards his lady because he's having sex with her. And so that's obviously that's offensive, right? But this lady, as a result of hearing what Jesus says, she was able to forgive her husband, she was able to forgive the concubine, and she was reconciled with both of them. I mean, that's great. Another lady was able to, there was some witchcraft situation involving another person. She was able to be reconciled and be set free from any bitterness and resentment related to that. So this teaching was really having some good fruit happen of people being reconciled with one another, and in the process of that, you also draw near to God. Okay? Then we taught at for 5 days at Mutisa Royal University. So there's a Christian fellowship there, and maybe like 40 or 50 college students, and they have been adopting the message, and they're taking actions to draw near to God. And there was one lady that she had like a picture, I don't know, MRI or ultrasound or whatever it is, but she had some kind of picture from the doctor, and she had a tumor on one of her ovaries and pain. And when we prayed, immediately the pain left, and she could feel the thing leaving her body. And so she was very happy about that. And also, they're eager to put in practice the message they receive. They're eager to do evangelism works. And so we also got them a portable sound system, which we used during the teaching, and now they're going to continue using for evangelism work that they've been wanting to do. Okay, then lastly, Nsimbe Simon. And so we met Nsimbe Simon through Marlene and Enzo, who had a relationship with him. I don't know how you found him, Marlene. I don't know if it was Facebook or somehow. But Simon runs an orphanage called Restore Hope Orphanage, and it's outside of Kampala, Uganda. And right now he's got 45 kids and 5 workers, and they live in a tiny 836 square foot house. I mean, I don't know if you can picture that. Like that's tiny. That's like a 1 bedroom apartment. That's how big that is. Okay, like because literally,
Wow.
right? It's tiny, tiny. And
That's
so,
that's like a one-bedroom efficiency apartment. That's even smaller than a one-bedroom.
I mean, that's how we look at life, right? But they have 45 kids in there. So they have bunk beds all over the place. And then at night, they have another pile of mattresses they throw all over the floor. So they don't even have a living space. The living room has bunk beds in it. And then at night, it's got mattresses all over it. And so it's crazy. But, I mean, the
And
kids,
two kids to a bed.
yeah, 2 kids per tiny little bunk bed mattress. And then some of them, like, some of them are still young and they pee the bed. And so if you can only imagine, it's not super pleasant. But nonetheless, despite all that, the kids are happy. They're happy and they're playful and affectionate, so it's really good. And
They
so,
look happy in the pictures.
yeah,
They do.
um, especially when they're pulling my glasses off and rubbing my hair.
Right, they're glommed onto you.
So anyway, so recently we bought them 5 acres of land to build a new orphanage on. We also bought 1 acre separately to have a school on. And construction's been in process for months now. And the first dormitory is almost complete. And building, each house is like 3,600 square feet. So even when they move into this first building, it's already like a 4x upgrade for them. And so that's pretty amazing. So they're going to move in probably about a month, depending how things finishing up things go. And so we got to have lunch with the kids. We visited both of the properties. The kids, I mean, really, that was like the most fun part of the trip because it was just fun. I'm an affectionate person, and the kids were affectionate, so we're hugging each other and smiling, and it was really good. And amazing things that happened for them. So over the course of the last year, contributions coming into the orphanage have increased dramatically. And so now these kids who used to maybe have 1 meal a day, sometimes 2 meals a day, now they're like very well fed, very well clothed. They all of their physical needs are abundantly fulfilled now. And they're even instead of being a stigma going to school, now they're often like sharing their food with their other classmates. And so their whole life situation is just turned around. So that's good. But an observation though, it's like 45 kids to 5 workers, and these 5 workers, they're busy working. And an observation was that these kids were just hungry for affection, and it would be nice if there's a way to kind of increase the TLC. Maybe if there were more workers, they could spend less time working and more time playing with the kids or doing different, TLC with the kids. So that's something that we want to think about. How could we do that? Of course, if there's more workers, we'll need greater contributions that will come into the orphanage to support that. All right, so here is me out of season on stage, but thank God it went well. And then here, this is me baptizing for the first time. And then over on the right, this is Roger's church, which is in construction. It's being built. It originally was made of like tarp and sticks, and then that fell down, and then they started building the brick walls, and there's a whole lot more work to do, but it's being reconstructed, and he has a really nice picture of how that's going to turn out. Here is Mutisa Royal University, where we're teaching the college students. See, everybody's got their books. There's books everywhere. So the people we're working with, like Rogers and Joseph, they're very good about getting study guides into the hands of every person that we're teaching. Even when we were in Uganda, we had to have more books made because we had more numbers than we anticipated. So it's really good when people have a study guide, especially in their own language. And then here is the new orphanage. So this is it's a 60 feet by 60 feet, 60 foot by 60 foot building. So 3,600 square feet. There's like what is it? 13 bedrooms, 12 bedrooms, one like bathing room, and then a huge living room where there's going to be couches and TVs and chairs and different things. And and this is actually, I don't know if you saw these pictures already, Mitchell and Kathy, but they made a statue of your dad there. And then the last picture, this is just me sitting here with some of the kids. So it was a great trip overall. The main thing is the people are rising in faith. They're walking in victory in Kenya. Amazing things happening at the hospital. Amazing things happening with the government. Then Rogers people are growing and the numbers are increasing. So great things are happening. So any questions about the trip?